Hello, welcome back. My name is Charlie, and I want to talk to you about I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a book that is outside of my typical comfort zone. It's not in my standard genres. I'm usually reading fantasy, but I recently, as of like this year, I decided that I wanted to try a memoir, and I've been talking about it a lot, and I finally got around to doing it. I picked up my very first memoir, and it was this one, and I have a lot of thoughts. If you're not familiar with Jeanette McCurdy, who she is as a human being, she's a former Nickelodeon actor. She was on a huge show called iCarly, and she even got a spin-off show called Sam and Cat, which I never watched that one, but I was around when iCarly was big on TV. Like I said, that show was huge. It was a phenomenon. It's still pretty big, and there's even there's been a reboot where a lot of the actors came back, reunited, and did they're maybe even possibly still shooting. I'm not sure, but they did a reboot, or they're still doing a reboot show for iCarly, which Jeanette is not part of. Because Jeanette McCurdy is who Jeanette McCurdy is, I'm not shocked, or at least I wasn't shocked that this book sold a ton of copies kind of immediately, right? And that's for a number of reasons, not just the fact that Jeanette McCurdy is a huge, former child actor, but it's also because of this catchy title. I'm Glad My Mom Died. That's quite a statement. It's a bold thing to title your memoir. And then it also just has, this bright yellow and pink cover with her holding an urn, like a bright pink urn. So it's all very grabby, and she's got a big name. So it isn't shocking to me that it sold a ton. What did shock me is that this book was very well received. There's a lot of celebrity memoirs out there. There's a ton of them. And again, it's not my typical genre. I'm not usually very interested in reading a celebrity memoir, but this one got a lot of buzz because it stirred the pot in quite a few arenas. Typically in my book reviews, I'll talk about the characters and the character progression and the setting, world building, things like that. But this being the story of a woman's life, the character growth is her own human personal growth, and that's kind of what the book is about. And the setting is Earth, so you already know that. So I'm not going to be talking about things like that. I'm just going to be talking about how this book made me feel and why I think you should read it, why I think pretty much anyone should read this book. I'm not going to be mentioning anything that I consider a spoiler, but the blurb on this book, like the synopsis, is quite revealing. There's a lot of detail that they go into on the inside cover of this book, as well as the intro, like the prologue to the book. I'll probably touch on just one small piece in that as well, but I don't consider those spoilers. They just set the scene, and so I'll be mentioning that. Don't worry about it. It's not going to spoil anything. I'm very spoiler sensitive myself, so you're fine to stay here. Like I said, Jeanette McCurdy is a former child actor, and she got her start when she was only 6 years old. It's not super uncommon. A lot of kids get thrust into showbiz because their parents think that they should be a star, right? And that happens. It makes sense in a way that happens, because if you want movies and TV shows to have kids in them, you need kids to play them, right? But this gives you a really close look right away, right off the bat, at how it's not handled well, or at least it's not always handled well. In this specific situation, Jeanette McCurdy had no interest in being an actor. Her mom had all the interest in the world, though. She wanted to be an actor her whole life, and then she was never given that opportunity, so she had kids, and she put them, or at least Jeanette, into acting classes and got her a manager and did a lot of groundwork to get her career up and running, right? And that's, in a way, you could view that as supportive and encouraging and all that good stuff, but no, because Jeanette McCurdy didn't want to do that. I'm going to probably just start calling her Jeanette, if that's okay. Oh, I don't know. I'm asking a camera. I'm going to do that. I hope that that's all right. Based on the title of the book, you already know that this is not a love story. It's not a story about how wonderful her experience is with her life and with her mother specifically. Their relationship was strained at best. Based on the title of the book, you can imagine that it was not perfect. But what surprised me is that this book wasn't entirely around her relationship with her mother. It was based on Jeanette's entire life. And while she was an actor and that did take up a lot of her life, she had a lot more life than that, obviously, right? There's more members of her family, and there's more things that she did when she wasn't in acting classes. And it goes really deep into her home life and her relationships with her family members, but also her friends, including some co-stars and some non-co-stars, including her members of her religion and her religion itself, which was a really interesting piece of the story that I can't go too much into, but it was different than I expected it to be, her relationship with her religion. And it talks about her relationship with men and discovering herself in that arena. And it's just, it's really good. But before I talk too much about how good this book is and how I really do think that you should read this, I think just about everybody should read this book, I want to talk about my nitpicks, my things that I don't love about this book. And that is kind of the book itself. It's, this story is really, really good, really compelling, really powerful, but the writing is whatever. It's fine. It worked. It was very easy read. The chapters were incredibly short. There's like 90 chapters or something like that, but they're all like 4 pages. Really, really short chapters. And I did mostly the audiobook because my library had both, whatever. But it's narrated by Jeanette McCurdy, which is really cool. I said in a video once that I wanted to read this via audiobook because A, I wanted to hear Jeanette tell her own story, but B, she's an actor, so she'll bring a lot of acting chops to it. And that was an unfair thing of me to say. You shouldn't expect that, especially with this book being kind of about, at least in large part, her negative relationship with acting. It is Jeanette telling her story, though. The narration was good. The narration was fine. The writing was fine. It just didn't blow me away. If you physically read this, if you read it via audiobook, I don't really have a recommendation there. Both are fine. But yeah, it didn't wow me with that, right? So I couldn't give it a full 5 stars on Goodreads, although I might go back and give it 5 stars eventually. But I couldn't do it because of that, because the writing didn't wow me. It's fine, though. I would definitely not let that hold you back. I didn't find the writing itself to be very thought-provoking or very evocative, right? It was very much, this happened to me, so this happened to me, and it made me feel like this, and that's important because of this, and that is significant, and so then I did this as a result, right? It's just kind of, it's short sentences. It's just telling you what is going on. But somehow that didn't matter. I guess it was evocative. Maybe that's the wrong word. But it doesn't matter, is what I'm trying to say. You can look past the writing. I noticed that the writing wasn't great, but I didn't care because, again, the story was great. It was just a really raw and honest look at her life. There were some parts too, I'll mention, that she's 6 years old when she's at the start of this book, right? Or something like that. Somewhere near the start of the book, we go into her world when she's 6 years old, and she has in this book conversations, right? And it's that they're not word for word, like verbatim what happened when she was 6, because I don't remember conversations that I had with when I was 6, right? So there's some suspension of belief. Is that the phrase there? You have to understand that she is telling her story, right? So some of it has to be fabricated, and that's fair. But again, I did notice it, right? So thought it was worth mentioning. That's enough of the negatives, because really, I didn't care about those. I wanted to mention them, but I don't care. It was worth a read. I again strongly urge you to pick this up. I said it wasn't evocative, and then I backtracked on that and said it was evocative, and that's because I I really think that she accomplished something here by letting, or forcing almost, you to feel what she felt. It was a very clever decision, I think, to write this in the present tense. So it's all happening now. You're reading this with her experiencing it, kind of like you're alongside of her, and it's very close. So you feel like you are Jeanette, sort of, in these situations, and she's 6 years old, and this is happening, and it's making her uncomfortable, and I feel uncomfortable, right? There's things that happen in this book that she's describing them to you, and you feel them. Despite the writing being so simple, you still feel them, and I think that is because of that present tense and that close narrative. I don't know how to phrase what I mean, but I feel like I'm right there with her. She's describing things in this book, like how her mother showered her until she was 16 years old, and how horrible that was for her and how uncomfortable that made her feel. And again, this is all dust jacket material. This is not a spoiler at all. But that's horrible. It's not something that I've experienced, thankfully, and this is hopefully as close as I'll get to something like that. And it was really hard to read. It was heartbreaking. A lot of the things in this book really put a strain on you. There's a moment in the prologue too where her mother's in a coma, and again, this is 2 pages into the book or something like that, and her family is kind of going around the room and saying something to try to wake her mom up, try to excite her, giving her the best piece of news that they can possibly think of to try to rise her from a coma. And when it's Jeanette's turn to say something so uplifting, so exciting that it will revive her from near death, she chooses to tell her mom that she's hit a record low weight, her goal weight. That's awful. And right away, and again, dust jacket material here, that's because her mother has put her into an eating disorder, has trained her how to do calorie restriction, she calls it, and it's just anorexia. Anorexia, which just evolves into more and more issues with eating disorder, and she has a horrible relationship with food, and it's something she was trained to do. She was taught and she was encouraged to have eating disorders. It's just brutal, and it's raw, and it's honest, and it's important. Those are the words I keep coming back to for this one. If you know Jeanette McCurdy as a former child actor, there's a lot of little Easter eggs. She'll talk about her co-stars and things like that, and it's a fun little nod to the people that used to watch her on TV. But you definitely don't need that. So I wouldn't worry about I don't really know who Jeanette McCurdy is. I'm not going to pick up that book. I wouldn't worry about that. She is a human being. That's all you need to know. And what happens to her is between her and other human beings, and really, yeah, that's all you need. It's just real people that exist in this world, and they treated her the way that they did, and it's awful. And it also never felt unbelievable, which feels strange to say, just based off of the interactions that she had, with these people, right? Not just her mom, but other people. It's confusing sometimes when you think about how awful people can be, and you try to imagine putting yourself in their shoes, and try to imagine yourself doing those things, saying those things, treating another person like that, and you can't really do it. But in this, it feels real, it is real, and it's somehow she describes things in a way that, again, I think it's that close narrative, and I'm not sure how to really mention that or talk about that, but I felt like I understood Jeanette, and I understood how she was interpreting things, and I understood how the things that the people around her were doing, how those things were impacting her. And I never felt like, oh, she made a bad decision there, she shouldn't have done that. I fully understood why she made those decisions. Even if I would hope that I wouldn't make those decisions, I understood where she found the motivation to do that way. I understood how she came to the conclusions she came to, and how she grew into the person that she grew into. And by the end of it, honestly, I'm just impressed, or it's hard to say that you're proud of somebody that you don't know, right? That feels like you're not allowed to do that. But I'm proud of her for doing this. I'm proud of her for writing this book, and for several things that she does in this book. She makes decisions again that I don't know that I'd be able to make, or that I don't know that I would want to make, and she even talks about how she's like, oh man, like I don't know how I did that. Like she kind of almost regrets some decisions that she makes, but they're the right call, and I applaud her for doing some of the things that she did, including writing the book as a whole. This is a huge achievement, I think, and despite my small gripes with the quality of the writing and the narration in the audiobook, again, it doesn't matter. This is possibly my first 5-star read of the year. Definitely at least a 4.5. I might be able to find my way past the writing and just toss it the 5 in the end, because I'm going to think about this book for a long time. And that's pretty much it. That's honestly, I think, all that I can say about this book. It being a memoir, I don't want to give you any more details. I don't want to talk to you any further than the first couple pages and the dust jacket insert there. It's worth a read. I hope I've made that clear. I've probably repeated that about 500 times. If you've already read this, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to pick people's brains about this one. If you haven't, again, highly recommend you pick it up. Let me know if you think it sounds good. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, as always, and I will see you next week. Bye.